are back in studio. How you guys doing?
It's painful, Jim. As we get started here in week 2, painful. That's where the
goodness.
temperature's at right now.
Well, guys, Ben Johnson and the Bears knew going into Ford Field it was going to be a hostile environment, right? But they got it was a beatdown today, to say the least. Bears lose to the Lions 52-21. That is your final score. All right, give me your initial thoughts. Pat, I'll start with you.
The initial thoughts were that you had an offense that yet again started off pretty well, and then as it petered out, you will not win games having 3 turnovers in a row. You go fumble, you go turnover on downs, you go interception by Caleb Williams. That was just an unbelievable thought process on the pass, a pass you can't make. It felt like every opportunity the Bears could take to shoot themselves in the foot, they were going to take that opportunity. The penalties are still a problem. Defensively, you look like a completely undisciplined team. I know there's some injuries there, but you're supposed to be in the right spot at some point, and we just aren't seeing that from this Bears team 2 weeks in. We knew it was going to be an uphill battle, but I don't think anyone knew, maybe including Ben Johnson, that it was going to be this much of an uphill battle 2 weeks into the season.
Chris, how tough was that to watch?
It was the most, I think you talk about last week's collapse was difficult. I think this is much more difficult too to watch because they just were never in it. They were never in it from the beginning. And we got to the end of the first half where we're thinking, hey, it's 20, it's 14-7, they got a chance. All you have to do is get a stop right before the half, and then boom, it's 28. It's 27 going to halftime. It's tough. There's a lot going on where you look and say, hey, what's the worst part of it all? But in my opinion, my first initial reaction is the interior of the offensive line is just so much worse than we thought it was going to be. They get these guys. They go out and they get Drew Dahlman. They get Joe Tooney. They get Jonah Jackson, and they were responsible for a lot of those penalties we saw today, and that's disappointing, especially from a group of guys that are veterans. There's a lot to go around with Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones too, but I mean, the interior of the line was the most disappointing part of the game for me.
Let's go ahead and bring back in Jim Miller. This is the Bears' second 0-2 start to start the season in the last 3 years. Jim, I mean, what happened when you were watching this game?
Well, it's like what you guys said. One, there's a collapse, right? And typically what happens, I call it the snowball effect. Things start to snowball. Pat touched on, here you have the key fumble by DeAndre Swift. And then you come back, you got a turnover on downs. And then you have an interception. And then you have, a holding penalty on Darnell Wright that sets you back. There's all these things that just start to snowball. And that doesn't happen with good football teams. Good football teams, they're able to draw a line in the sand where they say, all right, hey, we've made some mistakes. Let's get it together. Let's go. That's just not where the Bears are right now offensively. And then the more they struggle offensively, now their defense is put in harm's way where they're all of a sudden the floodgates are opening up there with big play after big play. I just know this. When you go into a hostile environment, especially against a team that was 15-2 a year ago, it's looking at you square right in the face that, hey, that's what we want to be. We've got to strive to be like a team like the Detroit Lions. And Ben Johnson knows this all too well. And so the standard has to be raised. And so these guys kind of got embarrassed today, and the coach is going to go in and he's going to remind them of how they just slapped it out there. And you've got to challenge highly competitive individuals. It has to be better across the board. They've got to tighten it up because they're not good enough to make the type of mistakes that they're making to come away with a win or even make it a close game at that point. So a lot of ground has to be covered before they face Dallas next week.
I would say, too, to Jim's point, I don't think there is a football team, Jim, in the NFL that can overcome 3 turnovers in the row and then you go down and you give up scoring drives on just about every one of those. I don't think there is a team in the NFL that can do that and maintain as many penalties as the Bears did yet again 2 weeks in a row. Like, good football teams don't do these things, but even good football teams, if they have these games, don't find a way to win them. These are impossible mountains to climb, and the Bears keep putting themselves at the base of it.
Absolutely, just keep shooting themselves in the foot. So the Lions were a 6.5-point favorite coming into this game. Listen, if you took the spread, safe to say cover. Again, 52 points there. Jim, when you look at this defense, talk to me about Tyreek Stevenson. What did you see from him today?
Yeah, we know they're going to play a lot of man coverage, so I think from him, Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best in the league. And he's, again, we know that Dennis Allen likes the longer, lengthier corners. And then here you got a quick guy like Amon St. Brown. You know, like right before the half when he scored, it just, he kind of took him to school, you know, and that's what Amon St. Brown would do to you. So as good as what the Bears think or what they want to be, you know, again, it's looking at them square in the face, how far they have to go to close the gap in division. You know, so they got to take it to heart. They got to look into the mirror and say, tomorrow, I've got to get better. That was, you know, I think for Stevenson and, you know, I think all of America saw it. That was about as easy as of a touchdown as that you could be scored on in the NFL.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that, Jim. I mean, we talk about this defense being aggressive. That is the hallmark of what Dennis Allen wants to be. He wants to be aggressive. You want to do the press man. You want to get right up on them. But it really seemed like in this specific game, that physicality worked against them a little bit because you went up against a guy that is uber physical in Amon St. Brown. But you also have a guy that takes the ball off the defense, or the top off the defense, like Jamison Williams. This is a near perfect receiver combination that Detroit has, and they know how to play well with each other. Went to the playoffs the last couple of years, but that aggressive, physical play worked against them. Is that double-edged sword of you can be too physical sometimes, and it seemed like they tried to get that off the, trying to get off the ball really quick, try to be aggressive, try to get in their face. But if you do that, you open up to maybe overplaying a route, overplaying a coverage a little bit here and there. We saw Tremaine Edmonds do that a little bit too. I think Tyreek Stevenson got caught up a little bit of that today, and then Nashawn Wright on that as that 60-yard touchdown by Jamison Williams, where he just got burned. He was cooked. And that's the kind of thing where we look back and say, hey, this is where you have to go back to the drawing board and say, how do you be successful with this defense and not be over-aggressive? Because right now, it seemed like that's where they were today, and they got taken advantage of by the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, 100%. I think this defense, the biggest problem is always going to be pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
The corners can be as aggressive as they want. There were too many times today where Jared Goff was back there having a cup of coffee, a nice sandwich, and then finally go, maybe I should throw this football all the way down the field. Like there were too many opportunities for Jared Goff to get comfortable, and you thought this was going to be a game when Grady Jarrett gets in there and is actually able to go versus a young center versus a young right guard. You have an opportunity to say, let's get pressure in his face. There were a couple times the Bears did. Guess what? They got stops on those plays, but it just too many times in a row where Jared Goff's able to sit back there and get comfortable. And no matter what we thought this offense was, maybe it's not the Ben Johnson offense anymore, although it looked very much like the Ben Johnson offense still today. Right. Even in that situation, Jared Goff's a good enough quarterback. If you give him the time, he will find somebody open, and he can pick apart a DB like Tyreek Stevenson. And especially once Jalen Johnson was out of the game, it kind of felt like, okay, we really don't have anybody to cover Amon-Ra.
Want to remind everyone that is watching us, if you want to join in on our conversation, be sure to leave a comment in our YouTube channel right there and hashtag after the whistle. Let's talk more about Jared Goff today. 23 of 28, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns. You look at this Bears defense. Jalen Johnson got hurt. TJ Edwards, they didn't have Kyler Gordon. How concerned are you? I'll start with you, Jim, about just the depth and on this Bears defense.
Yeah, I think you have to be. You know, those are marquee players. We saw last week when Noah Sewell got beat on the wheel route to Aaron Jones. You know, he's just not TJ Edwards. I like him. He's a young player, but he's not, you know, a marquee starter, at least not yet. Maybe he'll earn that, and he's kind of learning on the fly here as he's going along, getting thrown into the fire, and that's a good thing because I'm not opposed to playing young players. You know, personally, I'd like to see more of the young players in there. We know Caleb's young and other players like Rome Odunze, who I thought had a fine day today. Yeah. I'd like to see the young players. You know, I think it's kind of where it's at that point. I'm just tired of this. You can if you make mistakes as a veteran player, it's hard to live with, in my opinion. You know, to me, I'd rather, if all things are equal, I'd rather the young player learn from his mistakes, because I can live with those. With a veteran who's been out there and has played a lot and he's still making the same mistakes, to me it's time to move on. You know, that's how you grow as a football team, and those young players need to learn. But I was encouraged by Rome Odunze, but for the other players that are thrown into fire, like a Noah Sewell, they've got to learn very quickly moving forward.
Let's talk Caleb Williams today. 19 of 30, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns and interceptions. He was sacked 4 times. Tell me something that was encouraging from Caleb Williams that you saw today, Jim.
Well, I like the student body right play where he ran for a first down and kept the drive going. But, you know, the quarterback sneak, certain situations, he's got to be better. The scramble with whenever it was inaccurate with the pass and he gets an interception. And part of it is he's under a lot of duress. Again, the protection has to be better. He's got to throw on time. He's got a lot of things to learn. In my experiences in learning a new offense, it typically takes 6 to 7 weeks before it's up and running. And I still think the Bears have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm targeting that Washington game. That Washington game, which should be a highly, really a soft point in the Bears' hearts that kind of derailed last year, that they need to get going. That's really, to me, is the line of demarcation. If they're not making any improvements by that game, then the alarm should go off. Because to me, that's where Caleb and this offense really should start to take off. But yeah, I'm concerned like everybody else. Same mistakes. You got clock management. It kind of disintegrated as the game went along, and Caleb's got to be tighter. But his teammates need to help him. He needs better protection for him to feel secure, like what Jared Goff felt going 23-27.
Jim, you just said 6 to 7 weeks, right?
Yes.
Does Chicago have enough patience for that, guys?
Well, it's not about us. It's about if Ben Johnson has enough patience for that, because you see him on the sideline chewing on his cheek, just ready to rip into everybody for the performances that we're seeing. Because a lot of times, like Jim said last week and is saying this week, it's the simple things that the veterans keep messing up on. Drew Dalman is not a rookie player. I understand there's certain things that come into play with a new system, but Drew Dalman is not a rookie center. Jonah Jackson is not a rookie guard in this NFL, and they're the ones that we continue to see make mistakes. And I'll say, listen, as good of a game as Darnell Wright had last week, and I don't know if the PFF numbers will say something different this week, I continue to say I'm not seeing all-pro Darnell Wright. I'm seeing mistakes being made. There's a couple of times in the game where he just gets pushed aside, and Caleb Williams has no shot to get away from it there. Like, as much as you've invested in this line, you got to start seeing some of that production play out. And we're not talking about guys who are learning football at the NFL level this year. These are guys that have made plays in this NFL.
I mean, you want to talk about Caleb and kind of bring this back a little bit full circle. When you talk about the offensive line and Caleb specifically, this is why when I was writing my story a little bit earlier and I was grading the Bears, I gave Caleb an incomplete grade. I don't think you could grade him off a game like this. And I know he had the bad interception. That's the kind of thing you got to say, hey, man, you got to get out of bounds. You got a big arm. You just got to get it past the white line. So it's out of play. You fight another day. That was really the only massive mistake I thought he made today. Yeah. And when I think back to that two-play stretch where they had quarterback sneak on third down, quarterback sneak on fourth down, that's not really his fault that the offensive line didn't get a push right up in the middle. Like you mentioned, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dalman, Joe Tooney, those are not rookie players. Those aren't guys in their second or third years like Darnell Wright is. We're talking about guys that were brought in specifically to give him more time to throw, and he was under duress all day. It felt like we were watching a replay of one of the games last year where he got sacked 4 or 5 times a game, where he was under duress. He could never get into a rhythm, because when I thought this Bears offense got into a rhythm, I thought they moved.
Yeah.
I thought they moved. They got to midfield. They got Detroit Lions territory. They looked like they knew what they were doing. Ben Johnson, I think, has good calls for those things. But as soon as you hit those penalties, as soon as you hit those moments, I was talking to DeAndre Swift earlier this week when we were in the locker room. I asked him, what do you do to get the run game going? And he said, we got to get less penalties. We got to clean it up. If we don't get things cleaned up, then what are we doing? We don't get any kind of rhythm. We don't get any kind of success going right away, and we move backwards. That kills a drive. And I think if you're in this Bears offense right now, Jim, like you mentioned, it's 6 to 7 weeks to get this going. You have no room for error here. You have no room for error to get this offense off the ground, especially in these early games where you need to have success, especially against teams like next week. I mean, you see it up here. Dallas got 37 points in overtime against the Giants.
Yeah.
Like, if this Bears defense the Bears defense can't stop teams that have good offenses, then the offense has to keep up. And we just haven't seen it because these penalties keep getting them behind the sticks every single time.
Right, Bears once again lose to the Lions 52-21. We need to take our first break, because when we come back, we'll talk more about this Bears loss, and then we've got also a fun segment. I like to say,
fun?
we're gonna bring some props. We got to bring some fun here. Come on. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
once I'm done. I'm doing a TV thing.
All right, welcome back to After the Whistle here across the Jim Miller hanging out with you after the Bears lose to the Lions 52-21. It's like every time I say this final score, it's not great. It's not great. All right, so Bears now start the season 0-2. Want to share with you guys some tidbits about teams that have started the season 0-2. No Bears teams have made the playoffs after starting the season 0-2. And since 2007, 139 teams have gone 0-2. Only 14 of those teams have been able to make the playoffs. We don't feel encouraged, do we? Or is it too early in the season? Yeah.
I mean, listen, you're 0-2, but you're not just 0-2, you're 0-2 in the division.
Yeah.
That's the biggest concern. And you know, working with J-Mac, he always said, Lovie Smith always told him, those are double losses. It's not like you just lost a single game. You've now put yourself behind the 8 ball in divisional opportunities to go to the playoffs. And so with that, right, it doesn't feel like right now, right, the 14 teams that have made the playoffs, right, one of them is the Cincinnati Bengals team that ends up going to the Super Bowl. Like, that's an insane kind of team that you saw. Oh my God, Joe Burrow is one of the greatest quarterbacks that we've seen hit the field. Like, it doesn't feel like you have that right now. And I'm not saying you can't get to the point where you do feel like you have that, but you have a lot of stuff to overcome, and it doesn't even feel like you have the generational quarterback that we were promised as of yet. He's moving in the right direction, he's playing better, but there's a long way to go before it feels like you just have a single player like how Joe Burrow was that was able to overcome a lot of the issues that team had.
Jim, I mean, obviously it's never great to lose games to start the season, right? 0-2, but these are 2 straight losses to divisional opponents. I mean, how tough is that now?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a Herculean effort that it's gonna take. You know, Baltimore Ravens started the year 0-2. You know, think about even Green Bay. Green Bay was 1-5 in the division, and they made the playoffs. That's hard to believe. That's hard to do. But the Bears' offense doesn't rival Green Bay's right now, and so it does. It looks like you're climbing Mount Everest, and you know, just for them, it's not about making the playoffs. It's almost like what Aaron Glenn said when he arrived as the head coach of the New York Jets. I don't want to hear about playoffs. I don't even want to hear about Super Bowls. I want to focus on today. And today's focus needs to be better as a football team. And tomorrow's focus will be to take a step further from what we did today. So the Bears, that's realistically where they are. They need to focus on every day at getting better at every practice, every single play, because that's really what it takes in the NFL. You got to focus on just that specific play and worry about the next play one snap at a time, so to speak. Those things are too big to even think about playoffs and all that. They just need to focus on every single play about doing it right. And that's collectively player to player, because as the panel has pointed out, you got veteran players making kind of boneheaded mistakes. Yeah. So every player needs to get better overall, and that's just a day-to-day battle for them in order to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to channel my inner Jim Mora here, but I mean, playoffs. Like, we're talking about the playoffs. Like,
I just hope we can win a game.
But that's the thing. It's like we're talking about this right now. We're talking about 0-2 in the playoffs. I mean, guys, like, I'm going to go back to when Ben Johnson really first took over as the play caller of the Lions. I mean, you saw that team was dismal to start. They got their footing mid-season. And then they got that momentum at the back end of the season where you start to think, hey, they could be something next year. This first year was never about, hey, let's go to the playoffs in year one. I know a lot of people were really excited about the fact saying, hey, we got a lot of pieces. We got a lot of guys. Caleb Williams can take the next step with a full offseason with Ben Johnson, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and OZ. Also, I think that was a revelation in training camp. We started thinking, hey, this could be something. But I mean, they won 5 games last year for a reason with a lot of the same players. And I know they revamped the offensive line when we talked a lot about that. And Dio Dengbo comes in, but you're still getting minimal production out of Montez Sweat. And I think that's a hard thing to have, especially against the Detroit Lions. And that right now doesn't make me think playoffs. I think right now you have to start finding what works, what can you get your footing with, and how are you going to build on that every single game consistently. And they haven't found what works yet, and not to say that they won't. But I think if you start picking out some of those games, maybe Dallas next week, right? If they gave up 37 points to the Giants, maybe there's an offensive thing in there that they can find where they can take advantage of. But right now, you got to find something that works, and that just hasn't happened yet. It might come in the next week, but that week 5 bye is going to be pretty telling for us.
Let's be honest, this was bad. This was embarrassing. Ben Johnson said he wanted to wait until the bye week to really reassess. That's at week 5. But I've got a panic button here. If you guys can see this. Let me see if you guys can hear the audio. Panic. Yeah. All right. So tell me this. What are you guys panicking about on this Bears team right now?
Right now, I mean, the biggest thing to panic about is playoffs, right? Like, it seems like there's zero shot that you're going to make the playoffs because everything else is, like Jim said, it's going to take time to start to figure this out. I think Ben Johnson had to figure out what kind of team he had. From week 1 to week 2, did we see an improvement in Caleb Williams? Yes. Did we see an improvement in Rome Odunze? Yes. Was it enough? Absolutely not. That means you have a much longer way to go. The biggest thing outside of that I'm panicked about is you spent a lot of money on the interior of this offensive line. And in 2 weeks, it looks like an offensive line right now that can't get out of its own way. I'm a little bit panicked about that. And lump in with that, Ryan Poles. Like, you had 2 second-round picks that are healthy scratches today. I don't know many teams that go out and win with 2 second-round pick healthy scratches. You had a third-round pick from last year. That's a healthy scratch.
Chris's face screams panic right now.
What are we, like, there's a lot to... There's a lot when you look at that part of it where you're like, hey, the construction of this team may be a little bit more panicked than we thought it was.
I mean, I want to take that a step further. I mean, you talk about the 2 healthy scratches, that were second-round picks, Shamar Turner being one of them. That was a guy that you drafted specifically, if you're the Bears, to help out the edge rushers, to help out the interior, a guy that you can plug in different parts of the defensive line. The thing, if I'm hitting the panic button, I'm hitting the panic button.
Oh, say less. Say less, guys. All right, sorry.
I knew you were coming with that one. But if I'm hitting the panic button, I'm hitting the panic button about a defensive line that has Dio Dengbo and Montez Sweat, guys that you're paying an exorbitant amount of money. We're talking tens of millions of dollars to get after the quarterback, to pressure guys like Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and J.J. McCarthy. And Dio looked pretty good in the first game. I thought that he looked pretty good, but that was against a replacement left tackle. Yeah. And you're talking about Montez Sweat, had 1 sack today that was wiped off the board because of a penalty. And then after that, it just didn't feel like he got close to the quarterback again. I know he impacted the run game a little bit, especially as the game went on. But, I mean, we're talking about these are 2 guys that I don't know the exact number of millions they're paying these guys. I think it's in the 40 million. That's way too much money for guys that don't give you enough return on investment. That's insane.
Jim, what are you panicking about?
Well, I was panicking earlier. I'm doing a watch party right now, and I panicked when the watch party, everybody was leaving in the third quarter. So that's what I was panicking about. But I was watching everybody leave. But I'm not going to hit the panic button. Here's why, Tina. Because this is going to start the march towards what they need to be. I do think they'll start to clean it up right now. When you get embarrassed like this, I can only speak from personal experience. Your name's on it, man. And that coach is going to call some guys out in that meeting room, especially some veterans as well. And I do think we know the new head coach that was brought in there, he's got a certain way he wants it to look. And it has looked anything but. At times it's looked good, like the opening drives of a game. And I'm more speaking on offense, but I know Dennis Allen will take advantage or take care of business on defense. But when it looks like that, you got to take it personally. And I do think they'll start to clean these things up as they're going to start to get called out one by one, and there will be a level of accountability. And I do think it will be better. Now, I'm not just going to say that leads to wins, but it'll start the step forward of this team to start to tighten things up, that they can't make the mistakes that they make in order for them to win games or even come close to be competitive in games. That's going to be a hard watch tomorrow for all those players. It really is.
Jim's talking about cleaning things up. I think you had some guys in the background there cleaning up from the watch party, Jim.
They are cleaning up. Everybody threw their stuff in the trash and left. They're already cleaning up the trash.
Jim Miller, our voice of reason. Okay, so I have a panic button, but I also have a hype button. I know it's just two games in. It's early on in the season. Tell me something you're hyping up about this team. Rome Odunze?
Yeah, Rome Odunze is the big hype right now. I mean, he looks like a legitimate, and did look like a legitimate number 1 wide receiver today. Even in some moments where Caleb Williams threw a pass where you kind of went, I guess, like 5-man coverage on him right there. Like, go see if he can make a play. He doesn't come down with that, but the trust that Caleb has to say, I know Rome's down there. I'm willing to make this throw to Rome. That is the comfort that you have with a number one wide receiver in your offense. And I think that's something that I am hype about, because Ryan Poles needs a hit in this draft. And there hasn't been many hits for him in the draft as of yet. I think Rome Odunze could be one that you could hang your hat on right now.
I mean, it's tough to find something to get hyped about, especially after that.
After a 52-point loss, it's tough.
That 50 burger tastes terrible, but I mean, we're talking about. I don't want to say Caleb Williams because like I said, I gave him an incomplete grade. I mean, we talk about a guy that looked better this week, hit a lot of those layups, and I don't want to say get hyped about a layup. But I mean, when you talk about the connection between him and Rome Odunze, that was kind of what we were promised when they drafted him last year, 9th overall. And that's a player that's making an immediate impact for this Bears team. That's a guy that just looks better. He looks the part. When I was talking to him last week before the game last week before week 1, actually, I was asking him what's been going on in the offseason. He's like, I've worked on these acrobatic catches. I'm at the jugs machine. I'm just doing a little bit of everything, twerk here, twerk there, just to see what works. And we're starting to see that pay off. We're starting to see a guy that is using his body in different ways, but also understands that this connection between him and Caleb is going to be the definition of how the future of this offense goes, especially under Ben Johnson. Rome Odunze is one of the, 4 guys that Ben Johnson trusts in that offense. Cole Kmet, OZ, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze. And I mean, that spoke volumes today. I think it was like 128 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Yeah. And that first drive, I mean, the move that he made to shake the safety and get into the end zone, we're talking about a guy that has a high reception point. That's not something that's rare. Right? That's rare to have with the moves, with the speed, with the body and the body control. I mean, it's easy to get hype about Rome. I mean, that's a great player. That's going to be a great player for the years to come.
All right, Jim, we're going to round this out with you. Give me something that you're hyped about. Give us something encouraging.
Well, I think, they started the game great. Again, I thought the way they managed the script, they go right down the field and they score. It's just when bad things happen, they got to realize that they're not good enough right now to overcome them. And that's when they kind of need to have a little bit more mental toughness as a football team. Hey, I understand it's a new offense. There's a lot of new guys. They got to build some continuity. That will come. And that's when I think it will come by week 6. So it's easy right now to everybody's going to dump on them and look how bad they looked. And they did. They did. And they deserve every bit of it. There's no question they deserve it. But it will get better. In my experiences, this team, these guys, they're good enough to get a lot better where their point totals need to start to grow. Because I think we know their defense isn't there yet. This offense at some point has to carry the defense. And I said that at the beginning of the year, that it's the highest point total division in the NFL. And Caleb in this offense has to get it going. And I think by week 6, that'll start to march. So that's what I'm counting on. That's what my experiences tell me. And hopefully these guys take it to heart. But typically, that's normally what happens. So I'm counting from week 6 on is when they start to catch fire offensively.
All right, once again, for everyone that is joining us here on After the Whistle, if you want to hop in on our conversation, be sure to leave a comment in our YouTube channel and, of course, hashtag After the Whistle. We need to take another break because when we come back, you'll hear from head coach Ben Johnson. So the Ben Johnson era off to an 0-2 start as the Bears fall to the Lions 52-21. Here's head coach Ben Johnson after his second straight loss.
All right, here we go. Two guys did not finish for us there, and that was Jalen Johnson and TJ Edwards. We'll see the extent of their injuries, but unknown right now. It seemed like a re-aggravation of what they had before going into the game. So we'll see that. Listen, anytime you lose a game like that, man, it's a kick in the teeth. Nothing about that feels good. Unfortunately, I've been through a number of these over the course of my career. These guys, I tell you, they're hurt. It stinks. They fought the entire game, and when you play a good team on the road and you have turnovers and you don't convert on fourth down and you give up explosive plays on defense, it can go sideways in a hurry, and that was really the name of the game. Offensively, we were able to move the ball a little bit in the first half, and then the turnovers and the lack of fourth down conversion bit us in the rear, and then defense has more explosive plays than we wanted to going into the game. We knew that they were an explosive offense, and we had a plan, and we didn't contain those playmakers very well. The quarterback for them really got after us and made us hurt. I look at his numbers, and it looks like he had an outstanding day. Certainly felt that way on the sideline throughout. So, and then in the second half, you get behind by that much, and it becomes a throwing game like that, and really just plays into their hands. So, penalties were still an issue for us. False starts, we had a couple of those. We had some holdings. Really hurt us. So, with that, I'll go ahead and open it up.
What do you make Caleb going to throw the ball away from and also when he comes out at the end, was that just the score's high and he wasn't hurt?
The one that he got the...
Yeah, well, let's start with it.
Yeah, he's got to throw it away. That's right. Yep.
And then at the end you bring Tyson in, is that just the game's out of hand?
Yeah, at that point in the game, we figured that we really didn't have a chance to come back in that.
But what went wrong in the operation of QB sneak?
I got to go back and I got to look at it from behind. It's hard for me to tell with just the still pictures, but just like I told our guys, I got a lot of confidence in them when it becomes a 3rd and 1 that we can get a first down in 2 plays.
And it looked like on that 4th down that he got to play with like 12 seconds left or something. And
Well, it can't happen because with the thing cuts off at 15. So which one are you?
The 4th and inches.
Okay. Yeah.
He got back to about 12.
Yeah, he might have. I got to talk to him about it.
And what were you told at the end of the first half when you waved your team off the field and they had to come back and you were 6-7?
Yeah, I had the official right next to me throughout that process. He told me it was halftime, so we went in for halftime.
And then what happened? What did they explain?
Land came over to me at the end of the 3rd quarter, and he told me, I believe, that they ruled it out of bounds. They reviewed it and said it was in bounds, and so it was a 10-second runoff. So we'll see what it looks like on the game tape. That certainly was not communicated to us.
And what about the defensive plan that you had coming into the day didn't quite pan out for you today?
Yeah, we knew that we needed to set the edge there to try to contain their running game. I think they were able to balance and get the edge a few times there. And so that hurt us in the running game, and then in the passing game, we simply didn't affect the quarterback. We tried to mix up the coverages, and they hurt us a little bit in some of our single high stuff with their speed. So the explosive plays are an issue. You feel those. I did think the defense did a great job despite the turnovers and the 4th down. They hit the field. They were being resilient. They were fighting their tails off. It just didn't go our way today.
How do you get a team to respond to a kick in the teeth like today was?
To kick in the teeth?
Yeah, just this.
Well, we have a lot of prideful guys. We're 2 games into the season, and so I think they're just as disappointed as the coaching staff is, and we're committed to getting this thing right. I have a lot of belief in them. We have leaders, we have captains. I mean, when you're around this league long enough, these games happen, and it doesn't feel any better when it happens, but the good teams I've been on, they find a way to respond, and I know our guys will do that.
Amen. Do you believe Dan Campbell ran it up on you on that 4th and 4 going forward?
What's he supposed to do? Is 4th and goal, what do you want him to do? Yeah, he could have kicked the field goal. They don't kick field goals. They go for it there. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. That's what he does.
How demoralizing is this loss, considering you were coming back, you left for Chicago?
It's not demoralizing at all. It's not demoralizing at all. We got to play better. Simple as that.
And some of these squandered opportunities after the fumble, defense stops on third down, getting the ball back. What's your message going to be about not wasting those opportunities of good field position?
Yeah, I mean, when we play good teams, you got to capitalize on every opportunity that comes your way, and we didn't do that. You're -1 in the turnover category, and you really can equate the failed fourth downs as turnovers as well. And so when you play a good team like that, you give up explosives, you give up all those yards. That's the way it goes.
You talked about being in this league for these type of games, winning blowouts. Having experienced this before, what do you think is the formula to bounce back from this going forward?
Yeah, the biggest thing is we're not going to hang our heads and get down on this. It's one game. We're going to be just fine. We'll take our corrections, coaching staff, players, we're going to learn from it, and we'll be committed to having a great week of preparation coming up this week and finding our first win of the season. That's all we care about.
How do you think Caleb handled the noise in the environment?
You'd have to ask him that. Truthfully, I didn't feel it as much as it probably could have. I was trying to get him the call as fast as I could, but I thought for the most part, other than those false starts, those guys handled the noise fairly well.
Is this the environment you expected coming back in?
Yeah. Yep. Sure is. Yep.
And you said you want to call more runs. How do you feel with that game plan and how that panned out today?
I don't have the exact number. Like I said, when you start getting down like that, it's hard to stay committed to the run game.
What's next in the kicking situation? You brought in the guy that practice squad, John.
All right, that was Bears head coach Ben Johnson after their 52-21 loss to the Lions. You hear Ben talking about there, nothing about that loss feels good, a 50-burger, just second game into the season. Jim, take us into the locker room, right? I mean, as a head coach, how do you address this team, and also how do you regroup after a loss like this and move forward and look ahead to a team like the Cowboys?
Yeah, I think, you classified it well. Everyone is embarrassed, but Coach is right. Those embarrassments do happen in the National Football League, and it's how you respond to it. And now the best example I can give to everybody out there who are Bears fans, think about 2 years ago when Miami went against Denver and they put a 70 burger on them, right? 70 points the Denver Broncos defense gave up. Vance Joseph, who is their defensive coordinator currently, they led the league in sacks last year. All right, again, highly competitive individuals will respond. And the Bears players, I think, will respond because nobody wants their name on that. Right. And they all own it. And so I do think this team will respond in kind. This isn't the worst thing in the world that happened to them. It kind of needed to happen to them because these guys know how far they have to go in order to win games. And so I'm glad it happened early. It's the second week of the season, but I expect this team to respond next week in kind against the Dallas Cowboys.
Ben Johnson talked about the penalties, once again playing a factor in their loss, just killing the momentum on some of those drives. I mean, what is it going to take to truly clean that up? Because it feels like, last year we were still talking about that.
Listen, it's a focus thing that the players have to lock in on. Every coach is going to say the same thing, and I asked J-Mac this on the Chicago Bears podcast this week. I said, is there anything that we're missing? Like, the coaches say it's just reps. Is it really just reps? And he's like, yeah, it's just reps. You have to be better with your execution and your focus week in and week out. And we have not seen a Bears team that has done that going back, 2 coaches at this point now? This is not just a Ben Johnson coaching staff issue. There is a focus issue that is happening at times in that locker room. And I think that's what we're seeing play in time and time again.
You want to take it a step further. You hear his comments, you see what he's talking about. I think poise is a thing, too, that we have to talk about with this team because, they get down to third downs. They get to these situations where through the defense to get off the field, that kind of stuff. Kind of going off what Jim was saying, too, where it's like sometimes you just need to take some of these games down the chin. 2 years ago when the Dolphins they dropped 70 points. You kind of look back and say, well, what happens next? The year after that, Sean Payton, head coach, has taken them to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. You're talking about ways that you have to understand what goes on, how to take one on the chin, and this was going to happen. Maybe it was. I don't know when we expected it was going to happen. If it was going to be this week, or
I don't know if we expected 50.
I don't know if we expected 50. Yeah, I don't know if the Broncos expected 70 either, like Jim was saying. But I mean, like in this specific instance, you want to see more poise out of the Bears when you get in those situations where it's 3rd and 1, you're doing a quarterback sneak, you got to get the first down, like Ben was saying. We're in those 3rd and 1 situations and 4th and 1. I expect us to get the first down. He is that expectation of we need to be successful in those moments, and the Bears just weren't poised then. But you take one on the chin, you kind of say, okay, well, that's what that feels like. I don't want to feel like that again. So find a way to fix it. You find poise in those moments. You remember what it felt like, and you just move on.
Jim, final question for you. For someone like Ben Johnson, obviously rookie head coach, but he's also calling the plays, right? How much is on his plate?
There's a ton, because you got to manage it all. I think he's going to continue to be aggressive. I think he's going to continue to go for it on 4th downs, which he should. He should against a high-scoring team like Detroit. But he's got to keep, his foot on the gas pedal. He's got to be very demanding of these players, of what the standard of what they want to achieve. And just as a cautionary tale, I do want to add one more note. How Detroit kind of got embarrassed last week on the road in Green Bay, Detroit responded.
Yeah.
Detroit responded this week. All right, so everybody just remember that. I expect the Bears to respond next week. How Detroit got embarrassed, they responded this week. Chicago needs to respond against the Dallas Cowboys.
100%.
And highly competitive individuals will do it if you pressure them. And like Pat said, get to focus on them. These guys got to focus more. They know what's on the line because their livelihoods are on the line, and they will respond in kind. Just
very difficult to limit it, to censor it, especially with all the outlets they have for information right now.
And then when a child starts growing up, I can also relate this to myself in a sense. Sometimes it's hard to, ask for that help or be able to convey your own feelings or your emotions or to process things. What kind of advice would you give to someone that is having that difficult